Welcome to the Weather Guru Podcast, special tropical edition for Monday, July 20th, 2026 here. We're currently looking at tropical depression number 2 in the Gulf of America here as it continues to meander in the Gulf of America here. And we're going to give you the latest update. This is as of 10 a.m. Central Daylight Time. The 5th advisory from the National Hurricane Center has it maximum sustained winds have increased to 35 miles an hour. Still a depression. It needs to get to 39 miles an hour or greater for it to be a tropical storm Bertha. That is expected to come later on this afternoon or tomorrow morning. It'll become a tropical storm. Now, right now, the movement is northwest at 3 miles an hour, so very slow moving here. And this timeline may have to be adjusted here for this landfall timeline. Right now, they have a landfall possible in Louisiana at 7 p.m. Wednesday. This may be pushed back depending on how slowly this thing moves. But right now, we do have tropical storm watches in yellow. This goes from Apalachicola, Carabel Bay, up through Panama City Beach and Pensacola, Destin, Fort Walton Beach as well, into Mobile, Alabama, Orange Beach, Alabama, and then the Pascagoula, Gulfport, Mississippi, and finally into Louisiana. The wetlands parishes there as well. So you can see the storm is going to be our second tropical storm of the year, as we with the B name here, Bertha, coming up later on tonight, probably about a 5 p.m. advisory or 8 p.m. advisory, intermediate advisory. By the night, it should be just reaching that tropical storm strength criteria. Now, here is the water vapor image, and I want to show you that there's a bunch of dry air here above it in the south and even extending into the Gulf of Mexico, and then you have this plume of moisture here you see in gray and green, and so it's fighting dry air that's being entrained within the system. It's also fighting wind shear that's supposed to relax later on this week, but you can see most of the country is going to have a beautiful day here, from the northeast to the southeast to the Midwest and out in west, as a bunch of dry air is funneled in after all that smoke, and as you can see in the water vapor here clearly, and so that's going to be keeping Bertha minimal here as a minimal tropical storm. Now, looking at the Sahara dust, and there's a reason why the dust is not a factor here. Most of the dust is into the Caribbean and into the Cape Verde Atlantic belt that we normally see later on in the year, late August, September, and up to October. But you can see the Saharan dust is not a factor in the Gulf of America, so that will not be working to inhibit Bertha. And you can see the storm tracks here, the model forecast tracks for Tropical Depression 2 here, pretty much all in agreement in the next 48 to 72 hours. It's going to be somewhere along the Louisiana coast, making that landfall, and then moving inland toward Texas area, the Arkansas region, within 96 to 120 hours here. So just have to wait and see how that plays out. A lot could change with this Bertha system that could be developing here. So the messages that we want to get to you is that, listen, this depression is going to strengthen. It's going to be a tropical storm Bertha by the end of Monday, as I told you. Moving westward, it's slowly moving, and there's a chance that it could strengthen into a strong tropical storm, possibly even possibly I wouldn't be surprised if it gets a minimum category 1 hurricane, which is 75 miles an hour, because of how slowly it's moving. If it gets better organized and we get that core, that could be the case. So I wouldn't be surprised, because it's in the Gulf, it's over warm waters, temperatures are above 85 degrees Fahrenheit in the Gulf of America. So storm surge watch has been issued for Alabama, Mississippi, and southeastern Louisiana coast, where a life-threatening storm surge is possible. And also, interest in Louisiana and Texas monitor the progress of this storm closely. And they'll have additional watches coming up, obviously today or Tuesday, as the storm gets closer. Flash flooding is going to be a main concern too along the Gulf Coast, from Florida to the Middle Texas coast. This is going to be a rainmaker here, obviously, because of the way it's organized here. And I want to show you the the next name on the list will be Cristobal, by the way. But I want to show you the visible satellite here. You can see most of the convection of this system here. Most of the convection is centered to the south here of the system. Most of the convection here with the photo satellite, visible satellite here, is to the south and east, displaced to the south and east of the center of circulation here. And so, as the system passes by Florida and Alabama here, the coastlines here, it's going to be pumping a lot of rain, south and southeast rain coming up. Bands are going to be banding in here, so they could have a lot of rain. They can get up to 3 to 5 inches, 6 inches, 7 inches of rain out of this thing, depending on where you're located here on the Gulf Coast here. So that's going to be a primary concern for people who are traveling along I-10, US 98, US Highway 98, US Highway 231, even 431, 17. All these highways are going to be affected here as the system continues to move throughout the week here. So just keep that in mind. But it is getting better organized. You can see it's starting trying to wrap around the center here. Some more convection here on the southwest side, but it's still, still a little bit disorganized here because of the wind shear and the dry air that's being pumped into the system here on the north and northwest side of the quadrant of the system here with Bertha. Nonetheless, National Weather Service has this thing as a mid-grade tropical system, getting up to about 50 miles an hour. This could change too as well, the intensity obviously, but they have it landfalling as a 50-mile-an-hour tropical storm somewhere along the Louisiana coastline, possibly, into the Arctic region. But we have to wait and see how that goes. But the system is going to survive through the 128 hours, through the next 3 or 4 days. But however, it could dissipate between, especially if it tracks north of the current forecast and has more land interaction. So if it has more land interaction, because this system is a big system, but it has a very unconventional structure that we don't have. It doesn't have a complete structure here. So if it tracks north of this line here, then we have a weaker tropical storm that comes in earlier than expected, right? But if it tracks south of this line, due south of this line, and continues along the Gulf Coast, skirting along the Gulf Coast, and we could have a stronger tropical storm and a system that could survive just a little bit longer and could affect more areas of, like say Lake Charles or something, or maybe even Houston, eastern portions of Houston Metro getting involved, like Beaumont or something like that, Lake Charles area. So it just depends on, the prevailing winds. It depends on if the system is mature enough to survive in the next couple of days here. But by the turning point will be Tuesday night, late Tuesday night into Wednesday morning. That's the turning point right in here. Whether or not we're going to have a direct landfall of this tropical storm, or is it going to continue to skirt along the coastline and not make a partial landfall and landfall somewhere down here on Thursday or Friday, and slow down because the steering winds and steering currents is not going to be strong. So those are the big questions. How much land interaction and how much land interaction the system is going to have, and number two, what kind of condition it's going to be, in terms of strength wise on late Tuesday evening into Wednesday morning. That's going to be the critical time frame for the system, and the computer models will have a better handle on it, obviously, if it doesn't, stall out. Right now it's moving northwest at 3, so it's barely moving, like I said, and it had been stationary all day. So if it stalls on Tuesday night into Wednesday morning, then that can pose more rain and more problems and issues for the Gulf Coast states, particularly between Alabama, Mississippi, and Louisiana. That's the part that that many forecasters are talking about, and that's what's in the models show here. Even though the models show here, yes, it could make landfall somewhere on the Gulf Coast. You see all the models in agreement, and the AI models too. Like I said, the question is, does it loop like this AI model does on the red here, and then come in central western Louisiana, or does it continue due west and just kind of skirt the land, never making a landfall until it gets possibly towards the Arctic region here, say like in Beaumont or Lake Charles, Cameron Parish, like it normally comes in that area, and then goes up into Texas like that. So that's what we're waiting on with Bertha. And they'll have that information late Tuesday night into Wednesday morning of what type of possible landfall that we could be looking at with this system, and then what type of strength it could have here. But nonetheless, there is going to be storm surge coming into the Florida Panhandle, Alabama coastline. Not a lot, we're talking like 3 or 4 feet here, possibly. It's not going to be a huge type of surge with this system because it's a tropical storm, but nonetheless, there's going to be water rise, and you should be prepared for that if you're along the Florida, Alabama, Mississippi coastline, because that water is going to be pushing up and elevated along the coastline there as well. So just want to be the latest on Tropical Depression number 2, soon to become Tropical Storm Bertha, and that's going to be Tropical Storm Bertha later on tonight with the 5 p.m. or 8 p.m. intermediate advisory from the National Hurricane Center. Thanks for listening. Hit that subscribe button, hit that like button. I'll see you in the next episode. Take care.